Hello everyone, I know it's been quite a long time since my last video and I even look a bit different, but I think we have quite an important topic to discuss today, and that is the dilemma of TypeScript in monorepos. Now, TypeScript is probably going to be one of the core things that you're going to have inside of your monorepo if you're doing any sort of web development. And I've listed out here 5 things that I think are issues with the entire kind of space of TypeScript in monorepos. So the first one is that there is a lot of solutions around about how you should have TypeScript set up in your monorepo. And there isn't any official guidance, at least from what I have searched on from the TypeScript team about how you should have it. Also, it's very common to have very slow TypeScript LSP and auto-completions in your editor as your code base grows and becomes more complex, especially if you're using a TypeScript-heavy library like TRPC or Zod in a lot of places. And TypeScript is quite hard to get right in a monorepo. There's quite a lot of moving parts and it's very easy to mess it up. And lastly, there is a lot of conflicting opinions about TypeScript and configuring it in monorepos. So let me show you an example of this. So in the turborepo documentation, they actually say that you likely don't need TypeScript project references. They add another caching layer to your workspace and it has little benefit. And if you go over to the Monorepos documentation, they say that based on their years of experience with large-scale monorepos, they believe that TypeScript project references are the right way to go. So which one then should you pick? What way, how do you configure TypeScript inside of your monorepo? So I've kind of compiled here the 4 common ways of having TypeScript configured inside of your monorepo. So that's internal packages, path aliases, there's also project references and build packages. Now, what do you think is the correct approach if we want to have our TypeScript LSP always really quick with auto-completions and all sorts of things while not really caring about our TypeScript heavy libraries like TRPC, Zod, so on and so forth? If you've guessed build packages, you probably don't need to see this video, but if you've picked something else, let me show you around. I have all of them set up in a monorepo. So let's kind of compare them together, see the advantages and disadvantages of each, and when should you use any of them for your own monorepos. So let's firstly go over the monorepo that I have here and what we're kind of trying to achieve to give you a better idea of things. So let's start first with the tsconfig tooling package, and this package basically exports presets of TypeScript to all of the different packages that we have and applications as well. We have a web application that's running on Vite, and we have a TRPC API that has 100 routers that are quite nested with a lot of Zod as well to kind of simulate that very TypeScript heavy code base. We also have a utils package that only just has one function, but the point of it is to kind of simulate a package depending on another and then an application depending on them to kind of have that hierarchy. Now let's start with path aliases. So the way path aliases work is that in your root level tsconfig, you're defining basically paths to the different packages that you have. And then, for example, in your consumers or all of the packages, you're going to extend from that root level tsconfig, which then shares the path aliases throughout the monorepo. So with this setup, we would be able to just import from the API package and it would just work. It would import from the source. And that is the case, that is true. However, let's see how quickly we can get the TRPC API to autocomplete for us. So here I'm going to do TRPC dot, and we're going to be waiting for a while. It's going to be, I think, around 6 to 7 seconds or so, to actually a bit quicker. But yeah, you see that you're waiting quite a long time to just get any auto-completions, and let's say we do it again as well. It's not even giving me any auto-completions. So yeah, you're gonna be waiting a long time to just kind of get any sort of auto-completion, and this is not really great for DX. Now, the advantages of having your monorepo set up in the path aliases way is that you don't have any build steps and you don't require them. You're kind of straight up importing from the source files. However, a disadvantage of this is that when you want to publish a package to something like npm, it's going to be a bit time consuming to get that setup working right with actually then having a build step for that package. Now next, let's look at internal packages. So the way internal packages work is that we don't have any build steps in kind of the package that is internal. Instead, we are just exporting the TypeScript source file from the package JSON. So we're unable to publish this package to npm because we don't have the compiled or transpiled files. However, this makes it really easy to consume that package in your applications. So you just add it as a dependency in your, let's say, application, my web app here, and we can just reference it, normally. So there is no path aliases going on. We're still referencing from the source files, so it will still have the same TypeScript LSP speed issues that we saw with path aliases. So yeah, this is still not great for the DX. However, it's very easy to set it up, and if your monorepo doesn't require your packages to be published to npm, or you don't have a very TypeScript heavy setup, this can be quite an effective setup. Now, I personally think that internal packages are quite a good approach if you're not planning to publish anything to npm, and also if you don't have a TypeScript LSP heavy setup like we have here. It's just very easy to configure it and get going, and that's kind of, I think, the whole point of it. Now, the next one is project references. This one was quite a hard one for me to kind of wrap my head around. The configuration of things and project references is quite hard. So kind of let me show you around how they generally work. So in the root tsconfig file here, we reference every app and package that we have in the monorepo, and then every package or application also reference their own dependencies. So for example, if we go to the web app, it would reference the API package and the utils package as well, but also reference the build tsconfig, and again the build one needs to reference the same dependencies. So if you import something new from some new package, yes, you do add it to the dependencies in your package JSON, but you also need to remember to update your tsconfigs to kind of reflect the linkage of packages together. Now, the advantage of this setup is that from the root of the monorepo, we can just do tsc build, and it will build every package and application in order, because it has that concept of the hierarchy of things, because it knows the linkage between the different packages and how they relate to each other. Another really cool thing is that if you change one package and then rerun that tsc build, it's only going to build the changed packages. Now, this is quite advantageous on paper on quite a few things. However, let's kind of go back to the LSP and see if it is quick or not. So again, I'm gonna do trpc dot, and we're still going to be waiting a long time for any auto-completions. And just kind of a hint, if your package is being referenced, never mind, it's still going to load, but if you hover over the import of your package and it references the module from the source directory, you're always going to have that problem with a TypeScript heavy setup. So let's take a look at now built packages, which will fix this. So here I have the example of built packages, and let's kind of go through again and see how things work. So I've actually added turborepo to this monorepo, and I'll explain why in a second. But the way things work is that you have a specific build step that references, for example, a separate tsconfig file that only points to the source directory, and you build a dist folder, and then you reference these JavaScript and .d.ts files in your package.json exports. So if we go now to the web application and we hover over the API import, you're going to see it's referencing the module on the dist folder. So let's see how the TypeScript LSP does in this one. So if I do trpc dot, you see it's instant with the referencing and kind of resolving the types. I can even go, nested, and it's just going to be seamless. Now, kind of an issue with this setup, and this is an ongoing bug on the TypeScript repository, and that's the go to definition. So if I do go to definition on this one, it will go to the source file as we want to, that's using declaration maps, but it will go to the app router, not the specific procedure, which is not an issue with all of the other setups that we had before. However, the LSP speed gains, or actually no speed losses of the LSP in this setup, makes it really a good solution for these large code bases with a lot of TypeScript. Now, one of the issues that we lose compared to something like project references is that the moment that we remove the dist folder from something like the API package, and then let me restart the TS server again, it will say that it cannot find the module. So we actually need to build all of the dependencies of a consumer, so then that way it can resolve the types. However, using something like Turborepo or NX, we can kind of gain back that advantage of project references, building everything as it should. So in the turbo.json file here, I have that any build task will depend on the dependent build tasks before it runs. So let's kind of see how that does things. So I'm gonna run bun turbo build. And if you see now, because Turborepo understands how your packages are linked together using the package.json files, it will firstly build the utils package, and then it will build the API, and then it will build web. Because if we try to build web before we build the API, it will error out. And so that way, now if you go back to the trpc file, we can resolve the types normally because there is a dist folder. So how do we do this then in development? And it's kind of the same solution. So with Turborepo, we can run the dev command on kind of everything all at once. So if I go to my package.json here, I see that I also have a dev command that builds the package on watch. So if I do bun turbo dev, now it starts the web application, but also the API and the utils. There is a problem with this setup as well, again, in that if you have too many packages, you cannot just have a lot of TypeScript watchers going around. So how do we go around that? Well, I think that in most of the cases, you're not going to be touching a lot of packages that you're going to need a lot of watch processes. And the way that you can go around this is using the turbo command, but with also filtering out what you know that it's not going to be in the scope of your changes. So for example, if I do bun turbo dev and then I exclude the utils package from my command here, it will only start the dev process on the API package and the web application. Now, obviously, this can get really long in terms of commands, like the length of the command if you're doing it manually. And that's kind of then your responsibility to maybe have some scripts in the root package JSON to kind of give some sort of common dev setup. So for example, if you have a web application that commonly references a UI components library, then you're going to kind of include these together in the dev and kind of maybe provide a dev web script or something like that. To kind of minimize the watch processes going around. But yeah, in conclusion, in my personal opinion, I think that build packages is probably the right approach for most monorepos out there, because I think that having a setup that you know that will probably hit that ceiling when then it starts becoming really slow on the TypeScript LSP is not really worth it in the start, to kind of start with something like that and then needing to migrate off of that eventually once your LSP becomes really slow. So yeah, I'm going to link down below the demo repository here that I've showcased on GitHub, so you can play around with it. And if you have any questions, let me know down below and I'll try to answer you as best as I can. But yeah, otherwise have a great day or evening wherever you are, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.